great pleasure to welcome Jonathan Oaker, the founder and CEO of CloudZA, to What's Next. And CloudZA, and Jonathan, if you guys don't know who it is, he's a modern entrepreneur. He describes himself as known for his visionary leadership in the cloud computing industry. He's got a great background in software development and legacy IT management, and he founded CloudZA to offer scalable, secure, and cost-effective cloud solutions, empowering customers through the use of cloud technology. And Jonathan has achieved numerous AWS and Google certifications, demonstrating his commitment to staying at the cutting edge of technology and leading CloudZA by example. So great pleasure to welcome you, Jonathan Oaker, founder and CEO of CloudZA. How are you doing, Jonathan?
Great. Thank you, Aki. Thanks for having me on the show, and thanks to you viewers. I'd just like to say this has been a full circle for us. I think I saw you in 2010 at the My Broadband conference. Now we're about 14 years later, and it's full circle talking to you. So it's such an honor. Thank you for having me.
Well, listen, the honor is mine, and I get inspired by stories like yourself, and congratulations. I mean, take us a bit back there. What inspired the creation of CloudZA? I mean, and because that wasn't in your vision 14 years ago.
No,
and how does it, and how does this embody the vision for cloud computing in South Africa? Because let's be honest, cloud computing has seen massive changes in the last decade.
It has. And I think maybe circling back about to 2010 is when I started my first business, and that was ClickWorks Internet. And what we were doing back then was hosting and server hosting, rack and stack out of Terrico, Great Westerford, and through Headster at the time. And in 2015, we realized, hosting is not a dying industry, but it's slowly turning down and cloud is coming up. And that's when I kind of built out the brand and started the build for CloudZA. And in 2019, we kind of shifted the kind of paradigm to be a cloud agnostic provider. And that's when we did our training up in the AWS ecosystem. And we started with the basic training around solutions architecture and consultancy. And then we went to the services space and started working around services, Gen AI, data, and application development. So it's been a long journey. It hasn't been an overnight success. But I think with the right vision, we've just been able to implement new technologies. And then with AWS coming to South Africa out in 2021, and then we've got GCP now at the moment, they're out in Johannesburg. So all of these things are finally coming together, and we're starting to see some success in the delivery mechanisms we offer.
Oh, Jonathan, that's amazing, an amazing story there. And yeah, absolutely. You've outlined, you've given us a great example of where cloud computing is going. And I mean, today, when you look at it, and it's all about data, right? When you look at the data that companies are collecting, what they're doing with it, the AI, the algorithms, all of that sort of stuff, the big data, the machine learning. I mean, this is what's driving the world today. So in layman's terms, could you explain to us what is big data to somebody you've never met before, and why is it becoming increasingly crucial for South Africa's development?
Okay. I think maybe taking it back a step again, like back in the day, we would look at systems with a database, right? So we'd have a big database that have all our customer information there, sales, stock, retail information. And over time, we've realized that that is just a box, and that box is kind of stopping the growth of data. So essentially what big data does is it takes that layer of storage out of that database and puts it into an object storage. Now, when I say object storage, this is kind of the cloud-based storage layer. And with that, it kind of opens up your scalability. So from the source files that you have, you can now go to petabytes of scale with low-cost storage. But now you've got the compute layer, and the compute is where we analyze the queries, we do large complex queries, and that is dispatchiated now from the actual storage layer, and it's available on a compute layer. And those compute layers can come in different forms. You've got serverless, you've got still the data layer, but essentially it's about providing business insights. But if I were to put it in layman's terms, if you look at the F1, right? So F1 has been at the forefront of cloud technology and how it's enabled the races to race closer and deliver much more exciting races. And essentially you'll see in that screen that pops up there on the screen, that's real-time data being ingested into the cloud. And that's by milliseconds, right? So it's basically every corner, every turn, every speed up, every slow down. That's where you're seeing that data being aligned online. And then you have a dashboard with all these analytics, and then AI plugs into that, right? So they can analyze the race's performance and see where they position up, where they go to, and hearing what the availability these days of the solutions, just putting it in a new trajectory of technology. So big data essentially takes away that heavy cost of having a database and kind of makes it open format so you can have it stored and then life cycle that data. So essentially now you've got all this hot data, and instead of having them life cycled into cold type of data, everyone's just using this hot data. So with big data, you have that application to reduce the hot to cold and make it a much more optimized and scalable solution.
Amazing. And I mean, cloud technology is certainly revolutionizing, business today, right? And it's not just available for the big guys as it was, 15 years ago. Today, it's democratized business and, small, medium-sized businesses, big businesses. This is where cloud technology is opening new doors for businesses, right? And innovation in South Africa. How do you see it, Jonathan?
Yeah, definitely. I think in the startup space alone, you're seeing a lot of movement into the cloud because of that scalability at the initial stage. So when you're coming with the MVP, so minimal viable product, you don't want to be putting all these hard resources at this thing because you still need to prove your case, right? So with the cloud, you can start small, start with baseline services, things that make sense for my MVP to go to get funding, go to get it implemented in a kind of global scale. And that's where startups are playing. But not only them, you've got this SMB space. So your small businesses that also don't have a big team behind them. The cloud also assists with that. So a lot of the services are managed. And with that management, you've got that ability to come in, learn a few things, but deploy a base website or a base kind of implementation of a service that you're offering. And with that, scale with your time. So basically, as your users adopt your system, your solution scales to meet that. And that's where the efficiencies are provided in cloud technology, I think. It's just that ability to start small, build out the best practice, build out your cloud practice, and then scale with it over time based on your users.
Exactly. And the scalability is amazing when it comes to cloud infrastructure, right? Because, you can pay according to how you scale. You don't have to lay out all that money initially and that sort of thing. You pay as you grow, exactly. But the one thing, Jonathan, we hear over and over again is this massive skills gap that we have, not only in South Africa, but it's across the continent and it's across the world, right? And there's such opportunities there for young people today to acquire these skills that are available. What is your advice? What specific cloud-based skills should young South Africans be developing to stay competitive in this job market that we're in at the moment?
And it's very competitive, I must say. I think there's a lot of things going on in terms of kind of enablement, in terms of youth and skills development. But I think the main thing is computational thinking. And I mentioned Jackson Shabalala from Tangible, and they go to schools these days, and they're basically teaching at the grassroots level what computational thinking is about. And I appreciate that, because when they come to organizations like us, we want to deliver solutions. That computational thinking really supports the development cycle of the individual. So that's the basis. I would say start at that point, but also have a look at some of the available skills development. So I'm self-taught. I've gone through the different implementations of training, and I've done my base BSc, but I've literally taught myself over the years of the new technologies out there. And this is all free and available on skills builders and tools online that you can search for. But another one is AWS just opened the skill set out in Cape Town. And the skill set is one of the first in Africa. What's the first in Africa? But there's only 3 in the globe. And essentially what that is available to is the youth and people that want to learn about cloud. So you go to the skill set and they'll give you some insights into what cloud technology is about, how do they get into it, how do they train. But yeah, once you get that baseline certification in cloud, like a cloud practitioner of sort, and then you start working in the cloud technology spectrum. But if I can circle back and just emphasize on computational thinking, because we can learn development, we can implement development cycles, we can learn data engineering, but if you are at baseline of computational thinking, these things become more efficient for customers, and that's where the goal is.
No, you're 100% right. And I'm so glad you raised that these free resources, and you mentioned AWS. Lots of companies have got these free resources available, and, you can even get certification done for free online. And I think those resources are absolutely brilliant. How do you see, the big talk out there at the moment is generative AI and how that's changing everything around us, right? How do you see generative AI reshaping industries in South Africa? And what role will cloud infrastructure play in this whole transformation that we're talking about?
Yep. Look, AI is it's not a new thing. It's been around for a while. It's just being adopted nicely now with the likes of ChatGPT, large language models coming out. But essentially, we've built an application called the Statement of Work Engine, and that's actually received an award from AWS for innovation. And what it does is it's provided to business, and essentially it allows them to create kind of summaries and documentation based on engagement. So we take different forms of ingestion, Teams meetings, Google Meets, and we make a transcript of that. And through the transcript, we align it with the amount of staff we have internally and align workloads to the staff. And this works perfect for small business. When you're a small team or you're a startup and you don't have much support, AI is there to enable you. So with these AI and generative AI tools, it's about enabling work performance and reducing the amount of time to build out a solution. And we've seen about 60% efficiencies in this, from productivity from 4 weeks down to a week. And these things are now implemented. I mean, I daily use large language models in what I do across the board, from development through to business, through to high-level business, and even just talking to it and asking for some advice about certain things. You'll find it very strange, but essentially these are not new things we're coming across, but it's things that have been done over and over, and these models have trained on those things. And you're able to get valid information from the sources. And now with things like RAG, which is basically a retrieval of information, you can now source that data from your information privately. So for example, if you're in retail and you would like to know how much sales you've done in a particular area over a particular period and summarize that on maybe a threshold of a period for purchasing that stock, the AI can now read your data, be able to give you that summary and assist your buyers in stock to be able to make sure they're purchasing the right stock on hand at the time. So there's so many different efficiencies that apply to humans at this moment. And it's not about losing those jobs. It's about implementing AI to support those jobs to be more efficient so we can do double or triple the amount of output.
Well, okay. Well said. Thank you. We know that technology can play a transformative role in improving our lives, right? We've seen this with healthcare. We've seen it right across the board. So how can technology, cloud technology specifically, contribute to solving some of these pressing issues? You look at energy management, you look at healthcare, as I mentioned. I recently did a healthcare conference, and we were talking about how cloud has the ability to unlock tremendous value and make our lives a lot better. How do you see it?
Yeah, I agree. And I think in the past, we had a lot of siloed data. When I say siloed, it was very dispariated. Let's look at healthcare. One provider was not talking to the other provider. Claims processes are taking longer. The data being ingested isn't aligned to what the claim process is. So what cloud provides is taking away those barriers and being able to share the data between organizations, but also to scale with that data and provide insights on claims and efficiencies. If I take it back to what we started with, and that was education, and we wanted, since I came from an environment where education was really tough to get a hold of, we wanted to make education remote and available. And we went along and worked with Moodle, which is an open source type of education service with universities. And we made it scalable and available to reach over 30,000 concurrent students. And this allows organizations to reach any individual in the country or globally and actually train them on some of the skills. So that's where we started, and that's what the power of the cloud provides. And then now we're going into healthcare and public sector. We're working with some of the cities and providing some of the healthcare availability to the city, and also just understanding the data orchestration pipelines availability. Because a lot of organizations are still very invested in on-premise. And now that cloud is available, we're seeing a hybrid split. So they're keeping some of the data there, but they're using the compute of the cloud that can scale and meet the demand they need, and then just store the data on-prem. So there's different ways of cutting the cloud, but it's about providing that efficiencies and making sure that the solution meets the kind of demand of the user. And obviously, we're looking at millions and millions of users in the country. So it's about that scalability, and that's what the cloud provides.
Okay. There are obviously challenges and hurdles when it comes to the cloud and data and everything. How do you guys at CloudZA deal with data privacy, for example, and security? I mean, we've seen some breaches happening recently, and we know how strict those POPIA regulations are in South Africa. How do you guys at CloudZA take this approach to data and privacy and security and those kind of things?
I think that's twofold. So we've built an application that is a single pane of glass. So it's a visible screen that you can see all of your cloud infrastructure across multiple clouds. That gives you the visibility to see what your content looks like, where it's located, and the availability of that content. Then the second thing to that would be tools that the cloud providers provide to assist with POPI compliance and compliance requests and technical reviews. And that's what we do. So it's use case based. Some customers don't mind with their data being all over the world. Most customers in public sector do. So what we do is we make sure that we have all the right policies and procedures in place inside of the infrastructure which then locks down the data within the region. And that's the most important part, where people cannot access that local data from outside of the country, as well as keeping it within the buckets, which is your object storage in the cloud. Then there's tools, smart tools that actually anonymizes the data. So you have, let's say, for example, a source bucket. That's where all of your normal customer information is residing, and your stakeholders can reach that. Then there's another bucket that uses some like intelligent changes and converts the naming conventions to anonymized data. So the final end result what customers see is anonymized data, and the first part is actual real-world data for your stakeholders. So there's ways to do it, and that's really about the use case base. So what is the customer requirement? But we get trained this. So the first 3 years, we get trained in our solutions architect exams to make sure that data and POPI compliance is met, and how we do that and how we apply that.
Okay, interesting. We were talking earlier, Jonathan, about, when you started and how, this industry and cloud technologies is transforming and changing so rapidly, right? Looking ahead, when you look ahead, you got to look where we've come from and where we're going, I guess. What emerging cloud technologies do you think are going to have the biggest impact on South Africa, for example, the rest of the continent in the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, where is this technology going?
Well, I think Society 5 is one of those things that is really something coming up in the future. So autonomous driving, healthcare that's available, healthcare that can be accessible by applications, drones that can deliver services, and drones that can use machine learning and artificial intelligence to navigate to locations. So that's where the technology stack is going to, but it all depends on the innovators, right? So the cloud is just a landscape. It's just a platform. It's about smart people coming on board and building these innovative ideas in the cloud. How do I solve for? How do I fix a problem with my technology stack? And that's what we see in startup at the moment. So a lot of startups are coming in the space using cloud technology to fix an issue, solve a problem that has been impacting the country or individuals for years. And I think that's what the power of the cloud provides, that quick turnaround to deploy these services, but also being scalable and available to the users to be able to deploy it. But yeah, in terms of AI, that is really the golden ticket here. If we can start implementing better data orchestration and cleaning the data, and that's where CloudZA comes in. We kind of look at consulting, and we look at the data orchestration of that and how AI can be applied to that data. And then as it scales, and this goes through all different verticals from public sector to healthcare, everyone's adopting it and everyone's making use of this. And it all comes down to that data lake, that beginning part, that what is my data being stored? Is it valid? Have I used the 5 V's of big data to apply this data? And then from there, AI can be applied to the data to make it scalable.
So where are you taking CloudZA, Jonathan? I mean, what's your vision for the next 5 years? Where do you see your company in the next 5 years?
Well, I hope to have 100 staff members. I think that's really the goal. When I started this idea, we had 24 staff members at the moment. And really just to provide that availability in South Africa and showcase that we have got the skills, we have got the availability. We've got at the moment a YES program, which is a national program where we take on some interns. We train the interns into how they work with the cloud and technology. And at the end of it, they go on and find jobs in the space. So we're looking at taking that on board more often just to kind of skill up the nation. Because it is twofold, right? We can't really deliver this solution without the skilled individuals to deliver it. So that's the plan. As we scale up, we grow, we bring in more users, we bring in more individuals that can deliver the solutions, but then also go global. The plan is to go global, to offer our services globally to different countries and deploy our solutions there. So yeah, it's a long journey. It's been a long journey. It's exciting. A lot of stress involved, but exciting indeed.
Talking about journeys, Jonathan, what advice do you give to companies that may have already started on their cloud journey, or companies that are wanting to start on their cloud journey? What advice do you give? What advice can you give to these organizations about to start their journey into the cloud?
I think the best thing to do is actually just reach out and do a consultation. That's the first thing. It's kind of like a free consultation. Understand where you are in the cloud and what your plans are. In terms of your company and your organization and your goals. And then we work backwards from that and how we can apply cloud technology to achieve those goals. Then the second one is if they're already in cloud technology, we come and we do a well-architected review. So we review the environment from a professional architecture perspective, make sure it's sustainable and it's cost optimized. And I think that's a big thing we've alluded to, which is basically cost optimization. in the initial days in the cloud, when there weren't too many pro architects and so forth, the solutions were bloated and they were built kind of just to deploy. And over time, as we've learned how to optimize these solutions, that's where we now come in to optimize the cost of the solutions and deploy more scalable things. So if people want to get into the cloud, please reach out. CloudZA is available to have a full consultation. And then from there, we look at planning out how we can deploy these solutions for customers.
And as you said, it's all scalable. So the costs don't need to scare people, but also I think you need to do that consultation. You need to do it properly, because many organizations and individuals, I think, go into this technology, into the cloud for the wrong reasons, ends up costing too much money, and they're not getting the full value from it, right?
Exactly. If it's a replication on the on-premise estate, it's not going to make sense. You've got to get out the core resources that's being utilized, and from there optimize it to scale, right? And that's where the benefits of cloud come out.
Jonathan, it's been such an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to talking to you next year or even sooner to find out your acquisition trail and your growth that you guys are undergoing, this incredible trajectory. And certainly an industry that's evolving so fast. And I mean, the amount of data centers that we're seeing on South African soil or on African soil, it's just increasing monthly. And that's fantastic to see, and great to feel that enthusiasm and passion that you have. Jonathan Oaker, the founder and CEO of CloudZA, thank you very much for joining us for this episode of What's Next.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure, Aki. Thank you so much.